Hey, B.A.M class. This is Sandy, and I decided to answer some of your questions this way, just talking to you on video. So maybe it'll encourage some class participation to know that the best question of the week will be answered this way, and possibly even become my vlog that I put out a couple of times a month. So this week is 3 questions, all in the same posting by Andrea in the B.A.M class. The reason I chose these questions is because I want to be perfectly clear, and I feel like I can do that a little bit better this way than writing. So the first question is, how long and how often should we train? I want to stop a bit before they glaze. So that's a great question. And it already tells me that she's a pretty intuitive trainer, that she's even noticing that a glaze happens. So as I enter my 4th decade in dog training, and I'm committed to expanding my ideas and my mind about my dogs and my students' dogs, I have kind of a mission to not sell them short. So in the past, we had an expression, short and sweet, short and sweet. And I kind of latched on to that was always best. I don't think that anymore, but I do think that the length of the session is very, very important. There are so many different flavors of my training sessions, and I no longer feel obligated to keep every stage of learning short and sweet and standing on my head and entertaining the dog and clouding sometimes the subject at hand with hoopdala. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of hoopdala, and I'm a big fan of keeping my dogs entertained. But some lessons require thoughtfulness and time. So when a dog has a mini breakthrough in a session, it's my job to notice and then provide that dog with what he needs the most in that particular session. And there's so many determining factors: the temperature of the day, the tiredness of the dog, the recent learning, what we've been working on lately, the level of comprehension that the dog is currently at. So maybe we don't have to look so much at when a session should end as how a session should start and how many breaks in the session are to your benefit and your dog's benefit. So I no longer feel the need at the first glimmer of happiness or the first glimmer of any comprehension. So, okay, stop now. And I trained that way for many, many years. And I also don't think I have to take a long break. So the way that I praise is a form of a break, because I look, one, at praise and rewarding as 2 different things. Although I will say I am rarely rewarding without praise. And what that looks like is Pez dispenser, when people are trainers, handlers are shoving food into the dog's mouth kind of absent-mindedly while they're thinking about what they do next. Now I got to be careful, because I'm not saying that I won't be rewarding moving with engagement, my fun way of talking heel, as I'm setting up to do another thing, but I'm still engaged with the dog. I believe that this is serious business, and I take a lot of responsibility in, well, the ACE way is reliable skills through chemistry and communication. So I'm not trying to get level-headed communication or excited, I call it let your hair down understanding. unless the chemistry is been arranged by my dog and I for that type of learning to happen. So there are plenty of sessions that go way longer than I normally would have done. And when I noticed one day that the point where I'm like, whew, I had a mini breakthrough, time to stop, better stop, was right when the dog was getting it. And I wouldn't want to learn that way. I wouldn't want, as soon as I started to grasp something, have my, I don't know if some of you have been in therapy when the therapist goes, okay, time's up. And you're like, holy shit. I was just putting something together here. So that's the good news too. All hope is not lost. Everybody's going to cope and survive if the training sessions go a little long or a little short. The thing of it is if we go too long, too often, what we can inadvertently teach some dogs, there'd be somebody out there going, well, I did that with my dog and it never happened to me. I understand that. I get it. I know. And that's not, but you missed something. That is the truth. But what I'm saying is I like to build up stamina too. I want my dogs to want to learn. I want my dogs to think if there's something else for me to get here, if there's a cookie in my near future, if there's a game in my near future, if I'm getting all this one-on-one lovely attention, when people say, oh, my dog is frustrated, that's a whole nother kettle of fish, guys. And I've got, lots of folks reading frustration where it looks to me like the dog is just trying to put 2 and 2 together. Just because they're not in instant total comprehension does not mean they are frustrated. And I think confusion is scary. I mean, what does that mean? That they don't have a crystal clear understanding at the first? I mean, if that's what confusion is, then I sure as shit don't look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as a step or a state of learning. So confusion to me means the dog it's a downer, it's a drag, and the dog is no longer interested in participating. So if you've got a dog that's still trying and they're still in, I call that inspired. Yeah, maybe you meant the left foot and they're waving the right one and they're off track. But to me, not getting the lesson does not equal a negative frustration or confusion. I'm sorry, I always seem to digress on when I mention those words. So yes, the how long should you train depends on the training relationship you have with that individual animal. So if the dog starts to get sick of it because maybe just flat out, I mean, we're not perfect. You didn't hit the training session with the sun and the moon and the stars aligned. That's going to happen. And you see that my dog is not into it. She says the glaze, maybe that's a time to stop and reconnect. And then what you do next is also a puzzle that you get to experiment with your individual dog in all of the different circumstances that I've already described, so that you build stamina. So we don't create a dog that says, if this isn't feeling like Disneyland, I'm gonna, and plus we can't have them feeling like they can't pause during learning or they can't have a minute to figure it out. I see a lot of folks reading checkout as wait, don't tell me. I see it as wait, don't tell me. And they're going, oh, look, I've lost him. So, pausing the session, hitting pause, and, sometimes it's a massage and a belly rub and a ooh, baby session. Sometimes it's a tug game. And then invite the dog back in. Hey, what do you say? You want to take this to the next step or review the last one or work on something else? Because I don't want to create a dog that in the face of a question, in the face of a learning dilemma or challenge or temperature sensitivity or whatever, that the answer is always, so we stop. because for me, all roads lead to competition. I'm not saying it's the most important thing in my life. It's not. Hiking is with my dogs is the most important thing in my life. I'm lucky that I need the same stuff for both, and I can see how clearly that is, which takes us to the next question, which is, so that one was, how long should we train? Long answer. It is, for me, a long answer. It's an important question with a complex answer. 2 is, what about doing other things? Can it have a negative effect on their learning? For example, my little BC is only 1 and needs lots of exercise. BC's border collie. So we go off leash walking on trails. Is this okay? He recalls pretty good, but I don't want to mess up on commands, quote unquote. I'm taking a big breath, and some of you might want to hit pause and go make a cup of tea and come back for this answer, because again, I'm excited about the question because I'm going to take it as an opportunity to share what I know about all that. And I know a lot, because what I'm doing with my dogs on and off the agility field, in and out of training sessions, is creating one dog where as many possible skills can fit the life and agility. Everything for me falls into 2 categories, life and agility. So I am worried about those commands. What I'm worried most about all the time is teaching my dog that some commands are important and others are not. That's the scarier piece, because when we do that to our dogs, we force them to reside in a constant state of guessing which commands, when, are to be taken seriously, and what that would mean, what that would look like for me is that I maintain the criteria of the skill. So when I'm out walking with a 1-year-old that maybe shouldn't be off leash, but I've made the decision to have them off leash, I am not a mistake-free dog trainer. I make mistakes, but I've gotten pretty darn good at knowing when to unclip a 1-year-old's leash, and what to do and how to do it if things go south. And this is where I'm going to recommend a YouTube video called 3 Ways to Get Your Dog to Come Back. So I have 3 ways so that I can protect what I call my holy grail real recall or formal recall that is systematically trained step by step by step and saved until comprehension in the overall training is a certain level. But I still have name game, and I still have what I lovingly call the I hope you come routine. So my puppies, you know, here, and they come a running, and it's those are definitely reinforceable responses. So you know, sometimes people will, I'll tell people what I'll do and they'll go, yeah, but aren't you worried this? Aren't you worried that? And I jokingly say, anything that you say, like she says, could this have a negative effect on learning? Yeah, everything could. You guys, the dogs, especially by breed, you've got retrievers, you've got terriers, you've got sighthounds. They interpret information very, very differently. So, and within the same breed, which you all know. And again, for everything I say, there's somebody's going to say, oh, no, I've had this, or, oh, yes, I've had that. And I get it. Me too. But in general, more than in general, it's our job to understand, no matter how many dogs we taught this way or how many correct conclusions we had with this method, you're either getting a conclusion that will serve you well in the future with a method that you're using to teach a skill, or you're not. And whenever anybody says, aren't you afraid? Could this have a negative impact? Could the dog come up with this conclusion, I always say, yeah, I'm always afraid. And yeah, the conclusions matter. And yeah, if they're learning the wrong thing, it's going to have a negative impact. Sure. But when you spend time considering your training and what just happened, I did this. The dog made his move. It was that. I made my move. It was this. The dog made his move. It was that. Where did it end? What was the final conclusion? This command doesn't matter in this scenario, or eventually when this scenario starts, I will end up in this wanted or unwanted circumstance in the pond, if I was being recalled before I went to it, or at my handler's side if I was being recalled on my way to it. So you can, all this just to say, when you're out in the real world, when I'm out in the real world, I am always looking for ways to strengthen generic commands, awfully specific commands, general understandings, as well as my agility commands, if applicable. So my competition obedience commands are very, very specific and not used in other places. Some of my agility commands are used in everyday life, some are not. And that's all based on criteria. The third question is, and I can answer this one a little bit faster. I'm trying this. She means the B.A.M program. Oh, one more thing. On that last bit about, I almost went into the 4 systems of communication with that last answer. My 4 systems are verbal cues, physical cues, rules during play, or guidelines during play guidelines. I don't care what you call them. And then everyday understandings. So, and those are in the teacher's hat in my mini 3-part webinar series, The 3 Hats of Agility. The teacher's hat was designed for anybody with a dog, not just agility enthusiasts. So the third question is, I'm trying the B.A.M program on an 8-year-old anxious and reactive white shepherd that I'm fostering. Is this class just one dog, or can I ask questions about him too? I mostly got it for Zammy the BC, but it seems to be good for Comet the Shep too. It seems to make doing stuff fun rather than a power tugging struggle. So goody gumdrops for me. The course is coming off as I intended, a fun way to engage dogs with seriously serious basic concepts for everyday life and agility. But in the class, you can only ask questions for one dog, but I do go live twice a month on Wednesday Night Live. It's very inexpensive. Those in my class get 3 free passes to Wednesday Night Live that can be used anytime. The standard students get 1. So you can, and I highly encourage you to work Comet. He can't be part of the class, but you can certainly do the same homework that you're doing with Zammy with Comet. And then if you can, and I'm also available for half-hour consultations, you can get help with Comet too, or repeat the class. I think this is my last one for this year, but I'll be starting again in January. So I'm glad, and then she says she's learning a lot. And that Rin Tin Tin is an easy enough thing for him to do to look happy and relaxed. And she sent a picture of a dog that she's telling me is anxious, and I believe her, anxious and reactive, that looks wonderful on his mark. So thank you for asking those questions. This video will now be posted in the classroom, and it may also end up being a vlog. So I'll look for question of the week for next week too. Thank you so much, guys. Keep up the good work. Hey, I want to hear from some of you that I haven't heard from. Okay. Stop recording.